Hey folks, it's Jeremy Kirkland. You're listening to Blammo. How we doing? Hello. Happy Monday. Happy whatever day it is that you're listening to this. Which I notice, I kind of say that a lot because I want you to have a good day. I want you to feel good because we got a new podcast. We got a new episode here. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Feeling good. Had a great week the other week. Summer is full on summer in here. And my shirt's sticking to me when I go outside. Good old humidity. Dude, I hate the humidity. I can't stand it. I'm serious. It's driving me nuts. But it's all right, because hopefully your boy's going to be in Paris in a couple weeks, doing the shows, doing that thing. But yeah, I had my buddy, Mr. Andrew Chen, who many of you know from 316, coming and just doing a visit. He was like, yo, Jeremy, I'm coming to town. They had an event in Kansas City, and he was like, hey, man, I'm going to drive over. We're going to hang out. And we did. We went out to dinner. We got some food, hung out. We even got tattoos. Look at that. I mean, I think you're real friends, right? They come and they get zapped with you. I'm not saying everyone has to get tattoos. I know, whatever. It's just fun. I continue to enjoy my my midlife crisis, and I'm doing good. I shouldn't even call it the crisis, the midlife transition, whatever we want to do. But also I got a new guitar. It's coming. I'm excited. I was playing it, and then I ordered one, and it's going to be good. I don't know. In another life, I played a lot of music. I still do now, but it's just for me, myself, and I. But yeah, no, Andrew was here. I will say, I'm gonna speak about this ahead of time. The dudes at 316, they have a podcast, and it's good. And when Andrew was out here, he was like, "Yo," he's like, "Could we do a pod?" And in my head, I was like, "What? You've already been on the show. Like, what do you?" And I was like, "Oh, me on your show." And so we did it. And I'll be honest, it was heavy in the sense that it was long, and I talked a lot, which you would expect, but it wasn't me asking questions. It was more me explaining and elaborating and doing all the things that you would expect yours truly to do when he's on someone else's pod. But we got into it. We got very into it, so much that the next morning I was like, hey, yeah, you remember when I said this or this? Like, should we keep that in there? Should we not? I don't know. We'll see what happens. It'll be spicy. But I'm sure that's not why you're here, because like I was saying earlier, we got a new episode, and look, I really, 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 really love this record that I've been listening to. The musician is Alex Amen, and I'll be honest, like there's a certain kind of record that you put it on, and you immediately ask like, wait, how old is this dude? Because like I'm sure you'll hear the music later. You can go listen to it. You can even skip what you're doing now and go listen to his record. It's not totally out yet, but you can hear a few songs. But I heard it and I was like, dude, how old is this guy? I mean, this guy, he's amazing, phenomenal, finger-picking country sorta. But it's not country because, I mean, who knows what the country genre is right now? But it's him and it's good. But it knocked my socks off. And that was definitely how I felt first time I heard Alex Amen's debut album, Son of Amen. And I'll be honest, I was lucky that I got the album a little bit early so I could really settle into it. But the album does not sound dated. I want to be very clear, because it just feels like warm and friendly. It feels lived in. The songwriting, the arrangements, the musicianship, it all carries this level of sort of care and patience that feels pretty rare when you listen to records now. So it was good. He joins me to talk about the record, other records that shape him. We talk about recording to tape. We talk about studying great musicians, why the internet has made why the internet's made tradition both easier and harder to find, which is very true. But we also spend plenty of time talking about clothes, Texas, California, the Beatles, the challenge of raising kids who love music without accidentally ruining it for them. Very key thing. But it was great. So I'm excited for you all to hear this. And without further ado, here's my pod with Alex Amen. Let's go. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm glad we got this sorted. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So first off, I've listened to this record a ton, an absolute shit ton. First off, I thought you were like 60, because it's very it's very mature. You know what I mean? And it's not because of what you're singing about or the type of music that you're doing, but it feels like very, very like warm and
Hmm.
relaxing. And actually, I just got back from Scotland not too long ago, where my buddy and I were out there driving through the Highlands for his birthday, and we put your record on, man. Whoo! Fucking looking out the window, blasting your tunes. I mean, I feel like it's one with nature.
That's great to hear. I mean, that's a pretty good clinical study, I guess, right there.
Dude, well, I'm curious. So, first off, where are you from?
I'm from Texas,
Okay.
Sugarland, Texas, which is basically Houston, outside of Houston.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, did you feel that you had to kind of like do the Texas style music?
No, I mean, it's, the modern world, I think, has destroyed most of like culture. So,
You mean
so
like Texas culture?
to all culture, you
Oh,
know,
wow. Okay.
I mean, it hasn't completely destroyed it, but it's sure made it difficult to find. I think you have to seek it out more than it's just there.
What is culture in that instance?
Well, like I'll put it this way: when my dad was growing up in Texas, he grew up in a small town in Texas, and the music he listened to was from the radio, and the bands that you saw live were like done through promoters that would do it in a certain way that was like very catered to Texas, or that town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And growing up, you'd be only exposed to like what was around you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so nowadays it's just very different because, the internet, and it's kind of melted all the lines of everything. And so kids who like live in Texas are into the same, dance or song or whatever as like someone from Oakland, And so in that way, and I'm not saying it's like for better or for worse. All that I'm saying is like I think being from Texas, there's like things about being from Texas that are unique to Texas. Just like if I was from Minnesota, you'd have some unique things from Minnesota. But I think that those concentrated ideals of like, oh, where you're from really plays so much into like your concept of the world. I don't know if it's as intense as it used to be, because of just like the fact that we're all so hyper connected through the internet. And so, when I grew up, I didn't really like, I guess pop country was on the radio, maybe more than like a kid from Orange County would have it on the radio. But it wasn't like we were listening to like Bob Wills or like Willie Nelson or something just because I was from Texas. So I thought of it less so in those regards, but it definitely like, as I got older, if you seek it out, then it's like, oh yeah, there it is. Now I get it. I get the connection between like where I'm from and that history of music, and I guess it probably came through in subversive ways, when I was a kid as well. But I don't know. You know what I'm saying with it? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things you're tugging at. Like one is the nostalgia aspect of like how we used to consume music. In the sense, the traditional where you tune into your local. Well, I guess the bigger thing is like you're more engaged with your local community when you're younger and during that time, right? You knew
right.
about the music around you. You knew about you got it from the local radio station. You got yes, and I think probably too. So my dad grew up in Victoria, Texas,
Okay.
and he was on a military base. This was in the 50s. But my grandma was in a Texas, like her and her sister had a radio show where they played hymns and stuff on guitar called, I think they were called like the Lil Dixie Sweethearts or something. But
Right.
like there was very much this sort of love and admiration of like the local sort of country music, and it felt like that everyone that listened to it you were friends with and family, and it was this kind of iron sharpens iron and we're all in this together. And now, yeah, you're right, now it's like you're listening, everyone's more or less listening to whatever the algorithm put in front of them, and
Right.
there's less joy and discovery, and maybe it feels a little bit more lonely.
Well, I just think it feels a little less like localized and a little less personal,
So how did
and
this record happen then? Because this feels very personal, and it does not feel like a record that comes out in 2026.
Well, I think that record happened because of like an unusual care for tradition. You know,
Yeah.
I think that it's kind of what I was saying at the beginning is that like all that stuff is there. I think you can find the meaning and you can it's like almost as if you look at music, regardless of what type of music, but if you look at music, in this case, we're talking about American music. If you look
Right.
at it almost like an archivist, or you look at it like a history, right? Then now it's like it's almost the irony of it is that because of the internet, I think that it's less available for like the general public to be aware of all these things. But if you are somebody who
Mhm.
does care about it, it's like the best time ever because you can just like consume an infinite amount of records and you can source everything in a way that's like more streamlined than ever, like you can read the liner notes and like find the guitarists who played on some obscure thing and then like trace that to another record and then listen to that, and you can kind of gain this like well-rounded approach. I always think about like how weird it must have been back in the day to like find a record that you loved and that like maybe the bass or the pedal steel on it's like the best version of that you've ever heard, and you go and you read like the liner notes and you're kind of like, okay, that's the person who did that. I guess like that's all I'm gonna, it's like, how am I ever gonna go deeper than that,
Yeah.
which maybe is for the best or like I don't know. But I guess to answer your question, it's like, I think my record sounds the way it does because there's a big study of like tradition that came with my approach to music and also the people that I play with, I think they all have a very similar appreciation for where music comes from and have like absorbed that into them. And we could get into the process of how that works if, because that's kind of vague, especially for people who might not play music.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's an example of, the study of tradition that you think is more in your record that maybe isn't in other stuff?
I guess, well, I started playing music when I was 4 years old. I started taking piano lessons. And from that age to, I would say, 20 years old, I always loved music. I always played music. It was always a part of my life, but it was something that I actively rebelled against the work ethic side of it. Like I didn't want to know theory. I didn't want to like sit down and practice the same thing over and over again. And it wasn't until I dropped out of college, and really not until after my first band that I had after I dropped out of college, and I played in a band for about a year and a half. It wasn't until after that I really saw the value in understanding. Well, I think there's kind of a clear thing that it doesn't take a music scholar to listen to old records and realize that like the proficiency of musicians on it is better in the past, and that the production and that the just the sound, the sonics of everything, there's a certain quality that's like almost impossible to recreate. And sure, some of that's going to be like nostalgia. Some of it's going to be like the zeitgeist or the feeling of just like that time. And I don't think you can recreate that side of it. But there is, I think, the deeper you go into music, and especially American music and the history of recorded music, and you listen to the players, it's like, why are these people so good? It's unbelievable,
It was a smaller pool of talent then, that's for
Exactly.
sure.
It was a smaller pool of talent. There was also a higher expectation because of that,
Mhm. Mhm.
and there's less record companies. So there's going to
Mhm.
be less artists, which means there's going to be bigger budgets on the records, which means that there's only going to be a small select group of people that are going to play on those. And
Mm.
so I think what happened was that as I was listening to that, I also met musicians who were extremely driven within their own practice and within their own approach of like absorbing that type of music. There's a guy who I've mentioned him in a lot of interviews now, but there's a guy that writes for Fretboard Journal that I met when I was probably 21. This guy, Cameron Noller, great guitarist. And he was like the first guy that I met who would literally listen to like Norman Blake or like Mother Maybell and slow down their rhythm guitar playing and transcribe it. And when I met him, like he played guitar like that, like he played guitar as if he had a complete understanding of how those old styles worked, from like not only a kind of almost philosophical approach of like studying where that music came from and why it came from those places and the influences of those people, but like also directly from those sources, exactly how they were doing it, like down to the inflection of like a certain note in a certain bass run, you know? And I think that approach is something that I adopted as well into my own playing and the things that I would do, whether that was like rhythm guitar or lead guitar or even singing, And I think that what I was interested in, I had this guitar teacher when I was studying kind of like blues guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that I took from that was, this concept. I think a lot of jazz musicians have this, where it's this concept of vocabulary. And it's this concept of, okay, well, if you can take a certain lick from a certain great player and you can learn it so deep in your bones that you can play it just without thinking about it and play it perfectly. And you can take that one thing and then you can learn that again for 50 other players. And then you can sit around and spend twice the amount of time or 10 times the amount of time taking all of those licks and combining them into something that's like informed from them, but also blended. And you come up with your own interpretation of it. Then you can be proficient on an instrument with a certain basis of understanding the tradition of where it comes from, And so I took that approach, I think, to a lot of things, not just like lead playing, which is where I think you can excel in that way. It's like, what's the difference between somebody when you watch them play lead guitar and they're amazing and it's like they're singing, and somebody who's like playing a scale? I think that's what it is, right? It's conversation. It's understanding the dialogue and the phrases. It's like, why is Mark Twain so good at writing? It's because he understood the dialogue that he was writing about. He like grew up in Mississippi, and that's like why he was able to write Huck Finn. And you could understand, and you put it in that place so well. It's like with certain musicians, the reason why they're so good in their instrument is because they are surrounded by the greats who came before them, and they understand those licks and they understand that approach to music. And so I think on my end, I was very inspired by that and inspired by people who do that. I'm, by no means the only person who does that. I think, there's tons of amazing guitarists and singers and people who do that. And so I just focused it in a certain area, that I cared about in music. And, listen to people, you mentioned Jim Croce. It's like, that's a great example. Or someone like John Denver or someone like Neil Young or something like that. It's like, if you can focus in on how they sing certain things or phrase certain things or how they put their guitar or how they play their guitar. And it's it's deeper than just like hearing Back Home Again by John Denver and like listening to it and singing it. It's like listening to Back Home Again and like zooming into literally 3 words and like looping it until you figure out exactly how they inflect like certain things. Or like with Alabama Rain by Jim Croce, like knowing exactly how he's arpeggiating that guitar and not just like the notes, but like how it's being inflected, So it's like, if you can zoom into that, and you really learn it. And then basically this is the next art, the dark art of everything, I think, is then you forget it. You try to throw it away, And
then you make it your own, right?
Yeah. Because if you don't just want to become like, you don't want a song to come on and have it be like, oh, well, this is just this person, And that's kind of going back to the blues guitar concept thing. It's like, that's why it's so important to not just listen to only B.B. King right? Or only listen to like Otis Rush or something like that. And it's so important to listen to, sure, listen to B.B. King, listen to Peter Green or Buddy Guy or all that, all those great guitarists, but also listen to like great vocalists, listen to great blues vocalists and listen to great horn players and learn from their vocabulary. So that way, when you play, it's like, oh, this person sounds like their own thing because they're just the combination of all of these influences and not just somebody who like only listened to, fill in the blank.
Yeah, sure.
And so I think it's the same thing when it comes to songwriting, or it's the same thing when it comes to singing or anything. It's like, well, you don't want, your record to sound like the Rolling Stones. Sure, if you love the Rolling Stones, it's like, well, you just don't want that. You don't want to sing exactly like Mick Jagger and like write songs just like it and have like tones that are just like, that, like a Keith Richards thing. So I think what's important is getting a well-rounded understanding of everything, and then like kind of forgetting it somehow. Which you can't forget it once it's in your bones, but you can try to get away from it, I think. Or something like that,
Yeah. I mean, because even the stuff that you sing about, a part of me was like, I mean, it's some heavy shit.
Yeah. Well, it's a heavy record. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And so, I'm curious, how long ago was this record recorded?
Let's see. I guess it was last year. So.
Yeah. And I mean, how much of it was written?
Most of it. Yeah. Almost all of it. So I would say the record was written mainly between when I moved to California is really when it started to be written.
Okay.
When I moved to California, the second time that I moved to California. So I guess that's...
Why'd you move to California?
Well, the first time I moved for film school, and I dropped out of film school. And then I moved to Washington after being in California for about 3 years. Lived in Washington for almost 4 years. And then I moved back to California for music again. And I guess I moved for that second time in 2023 or so, or maybe 22, like just at the turn of 2023. And that's when, I started writing for this record that's out now, which was kind of, a lot of the concepts that of change, and change and loss. And like, I had a whole life in Washington that was, that started when I moved to California the first time. So it was almost like, I guess it was 18 to 24 about. So it's almost 6 years, and I had a whole life and I had a whole relationship and a whole thing going on. And it kind of, when I moved back to California, it was like a new era of my life, kind of walked away from a lot of things. And so the records, I think about that. It's about that change,
There's some grief in there. I mean, especially, I don't know how much you want to connect the dots with Her Spirit Wanders, but that was a particularly heavy track for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth.
Right. I mean, everybody's going to have their own interpretation, I think, of everything. And that's the beautiful thing about art, because, for me, like her Spirit Wanders probably is going to mean something completely different than it is for anyone else. And
you're okay with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the beauty of it,
Yeah.
I also think that's like why certain songs, it's like, I don't know, Tell Me Why by Neil Young. Like, what the hell is that about? I think that's about something different for everybody,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also especially where you are in your life when you consume that or experience it. Yeah, I mean, there's certain records. Like I moved to New York when I was 18, and basically all the music that I listened to right when I moved in hits very different now because it has this special meaning to me because it was when, I was out there trying to play music or do other stuff, and this old song came on the radio in the car with the kids, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I listened to this when I moved to New York, but it was like it felt totally different, and the lyrics of the song I couldn't even tell you. Well, right. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was something very special to me because of where I was in my life when I first heard and
right.
experienced it. But I'm curious because a couple of the things that you tug at, like I always make the joke that like for me the best music ever recorded was from the late 60s, early 70s, because you had a very, very small amount of people who could record music. The technology at that time is like you didn't hit like 16 track until what, mid 70s or so. So you
Well,
had
yeah, I mean, kind
you
of.
had like
Depends. It depends. For the
well,
most
yeah,
part, yes. Yeah,
but like you had a technological limit to what you could create
100%.
versus now you have unlimited tracks. Because what, like Dark Side of the Moon, right? That's 16 tracks, what they recorded that on.
Right.
Which is like, so you're forced to constrain and adapt to what technology is in front of you.
Right.
And with that, I feel like I've always been in the camp that I think design within constraints can pull some of the best art out of someone. So
Right.
were there any constraints that you placed upon yourself for making this record where it's like, look, we're not doing more than X tracks, or we're recording everything live, or no overdubs, or
Right. Yeah, I mean, we definitely took a pretty purist approach to most of the record. Um, every song on it was tracked live, with the band.
nice.
There was no like overdubbing in that way. There's like overdubbing in this traditional way of an overdub where it's like harmony or a tambourine or something, or strings, but in terms of the performance, it is just like, it is what it is, right? And most of it all was recorded to tape. All of it was done, I would say half the record was done to a 4-track tape, and the other half of the record was done to I'd say half of the next half was done to a 16-track, and then half of the other half was just like, we are out of tape and out of money, so this is going digital, and then we're going to print it to tape.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but there's certain songs. It's like there's that song on the record, Peaches, and it sounds so like old, and it's because it's on 4-track, and it's like in a studio it's going through a universal audio board from like the 50s, and the reverb's going to a real chamber, so it's like, and all the wiring's original, and so it's just like that's what it is, But there's also a lot of setbacks with that, because the studio that we recorded in is like a museum, and sometimes like there's a crazy fuzz that happens in your left earphone, and it takes 4 hours to figure it out, and and that's going to change the mood. It's going to change the feeling. Maybe you're cooking and like you're in a great space and like you lose it because there's an issue, or maybe you're stuck and you needed those couple hours, like we had the tape machine. I guess we also recorded on 8-track at one point, a 3M 8-track, the White Album machine, and it caught on fire, like it literally caught on fire in the
while you were
room.
recording.
Yeah, so
all right.
And that like burns, I don't know, that probably burns some like crazy old insulation, and we're all like high in a weird way, so it's like it'll definitely play into the record in one way or the other.
Yeah. You mentioned the White Album. Are you a Beatles fan, I'm assuming?
Yeah. I love the Beatles.
Have you so there's a indie book that was called Recording the Beatles, and are you familiar with it?
I am familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the mic placement of everything, and seeing all because it was Jeff Emmerich, but basically the engineer for listeners, there's this book that came out. It's called Recording the Beatles, and it basically has all the mic placement and all the engineer's notes for most of the sessions that were recorded at Abbey Road. And so if you were looking for why George Harrison's guitar sounded like this, or I don't know, John Lennon putting his voice through a Leslie speaker and then recording that from the room, for what was it? Yeah, like just shit like that. And I obsess over the Beatles to a probably unhealthy amount. I mean, it's the only station that I put on for the kids to listen to, because I'm like, you're not getting brainwashed by this crap. We're listening to the Fab Four nonstop.
Yeah. I think one of the most interesting things from that book for me was the whole concept of they would have the engineers, the interns who were there after hours, because the interns were all young,
Yeah.
And so after hours, they would have the interns do things that the guys who'd been working there for a long time, it was against the rules, to like do certain things. And one of the biggest ones was to distort things through the console, through tape machines, because they thought that if you pushed the machines too hard, it would break them. So a lot of that compression and a lot of that distortion that they get on certain guitar tones or drum sounds comes from basically, Paul or one of the guys like telling the intern, hey, like, stay around late with us and maybe you could get that drum sound to the red a little bit, and a lot of those sounds are like the iconic sounds. So I think that's fascinating because that's kind of like it's the whole thing of that's a great example of, and I think it has to be present in all art, but pushing the limits or going against what is maybe traditional or thought to be the rule, right?
Mhm.
Breaking a rule. So I think that is something that's really fascinating in all that Beatles stuff. And I think that's why they're so iconic, is because they're both at the same time steeped within a certain understanding of tradition. Great example is the Beatles of kind of what we were talking about earlier. It's like when you watch the Get Back documentary, how many times do they fall into like a Motown song? Or like how many times do they fall into like an old rock and roll song? It's because they have, years and years of gigging in bars playing Motown and rock and roll and American music and country music, Carl Perkins and stuff like that. That's why there's some of the greatest songwriters of all time, is because you have to ingest it. You have to understand all of it. And when you have all of that in your back pocket is when I think you're free to create. And that's when you're free to break the rules, So that's, I think, why they're so great.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, it's so timeless to me, and and even then, like I find myself like finding different records or different songs that I'll go and explore. Where it's like the bass for "She Came In Through the Bathroom Window" is so fucking good. It doesn't make sense, and like I went to a bunch of Berkeley kids summer programs and stuff. I mean, I feel like I was baptized by all the right, which sounds so fucked up to say, but like all the right ways to learn music and all the correct, and just hearing how wrong so much of how McCartney would play bass lines, but being like, no, but this is correct. Yeah. Right. I mean, it completely reinforces, your point with what you were saying. Were there sort of certain things that you found yourself doing on this record that you felt were like rebellious to the type of tradition that you were adhering to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, maybe I'll like lose a fan or something by saying it, but it's like the modern age, and like there's certain tools that I think it is good to take advantage of, like, we recorded it all live together, and sometimes there'd be just too much like snare in the vocal, or there'd be too much like pedal steel in the bass. And there's ways now with computers that you can get rid of that shit, and and like sometimes it's the difference between a take being usable and unusable, and so there's some of that. There's not a lot of it, but like, it was definitely, when we did it, it was kind of funny because it was like, man, you go through all these steps of being so pure, and then you're going to use like a plugin to like get rid of this thing. And then, maybe you argue, well, now it's like tainted. Now the computers have touched it. Now it's digital or whatever. But it's like, I don't agree with that at all. I just think it's just like, I'm making a record for 2026, and I'm gonna do certain things because of that, and I'm not gonna. I'm as much as I think that there's an awareness and a desire to create in a way that's maybe more traditional with this record. I also think that there's like, I'm not trying to make. I think I know a lot of artists like this, and some of them are amazing artists. And it's just what they do, and I respect it, but it's not for me. I'm not trying to make a record that's like on the nose, this type of thing, completely this type of thing. I don't want to do that, Yeah. And I think for me, it's like, well, how do you pay homage to that and clearly be in the realm of a certain influence, but try to do it in a fresh way, And so that's what I hope that like, if people feel that at all from the record, then that's like, that's kind of one of the goals, I would say, at least sonically, definitely one of the goals,
Yeah. outside of music, are there any other sort of, I mean, all your fits are very Texas.
Right.
All your whole vibe looks very very Texas. And I'm curious, like, what are there any clothing brands? Are there things that you look at where you're like, no man, this is how I put myself together? I mean, you cowboy boots and Wranglers here, or what's the word?
Well, I definitely wear cowboy boots and Wranglers. I don't like, it's not my exclusive. I think it's kind of like everything that everywhere a person lives is going to influence them a little bit. And I definitely think that it's a nice blend. I was actually, funny enough, talking about this like a couple days ago. And this probably comes through in the music and comes through just in everything with my perspective of life. It's like it's equal parts Texas and California and Pacific Northwest, and I guess now probably New York, and
That's a good mix.
and yeah, I mean, for me, there's certain things I'm into. It's like I'm from Texas, and definitely into like the Texas style and the Texas stuff, but also I love California rock climber lore, and there's a certain way those people dress, and there's like a certain dirtbag kind of approach, and like wearing pants until they're falling apart and then stitching them back together and having like a couple button down shirts. And then Pacific Northwest is definitely like kind of hippie, a lot of tie dye and like hand dyed stuff, and so that's definitely there as well. And I guess New York is going to seep its way in somehow. I think it already has. I used to have these glasses, my favorite glasses I bought in California, and I lost them. I had them for 3 years. I lose everything. Somehow I had these glasses for 3 years, which was like a record.
Yeah.
And they disappeared one night at a bar in Nashville. And so I just had to buy some. I just bought some like very New York glasses the other day. So I was like, oh man, it's starting. It's starting. It's starting. So maybe I think the great example would be is if I was wearing like some tattered old Patagonia climbing pants with,
I was going to say, yeah,
with cowboy boots and like a tie-dye shirt and some like New York designer sunglasses. Maybe there's like, there you go.
Have you been to Wythe?
No, I haven't. What is that?
I would highly. So there's a store called Wythe. A guy named Peter Middleton, he used to be a designer at Ralph. He's been on the show before, but their brand is very much. When I was listening to your record, I immediately emailed Peter and was like, dude, this guy's in the campaign. I mean, like your whole ethos, your whole vibe and look. You should check him out, but I think you'd like him a lot. I mean, it's Wythe. But I think they're off Orchard. I don't know how much you make it into the city, but
Yeah.
they're near Scars Pizza on Orchard, and it's very much your vibe and
Cool.
aesthetic.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, he's got some good stuff there, but there's
I think the philosophy for me with clothing is really one of the only modern brands that I like to buy, or that I think I buy at all, is like Patagonia, really. And it's for two reasons. One is they have that like complete warranty on it, It's like,
yeah.
if it tears, you just send it to them and they'll fix it.
Yeah.
Which for me, I'm kind of like, that should be every company, because if you're like having the audacity to keep like filling landfills with clothes, then you should probably fix them when they break. And I also just love the Mountain of Storms documentary that Yvon Chouinard, the guy who started Patagonia. One of the things that really turned me on in life to like, oh, there's a better way to live than like, going and working in tall buildings, like that John Hartford song.
Yeah.
And him and Doug Tompkins, who started North Face, I just love that Mountain of Storms thing. So when I watched that, I was like, okay, I'm sold. I love this brand. Yvonne he still kind of runs it in a way. And it's like, so that's but outside of that, the philosophy really is like, there's so much great clothing just like in junk bins or like in old shops that are like, yeah, cheap. And it's like, cool, for me at least. But I'm always, I think that I'm open to, newer brands and things, as long as there's like I think there just has to be a certain like awareness around it, because I don't know, fashion is one of those things for me that's interesting. Now moving to New York, I'm around people who appreciate fashion a lot more than any time in my life. So I've been understanding it. And like for some people, fashion is like as important as music is to me,
Yeah, I mean, because I think it's also, at least, so my perspective on this has always been like, I could care less about like the brands that, because some people are like, oh, like, well, if it's this brand, I automatically like it. And I'm like,
Right.
well, for me, like fashion and music has been so intertwined because whenever I think of like cool, I'm air quoting like cool, like people, they're always musicians.
Right.
I mean, you look at just like fucking CSN and you see, I'm like,
Right.
man, it's like they're like David Crosby's fits were so great. Like where was he getting this? And like the whole,
Right.
I more wanted to look like some of these folks before I even wanted to play like them,
Right.
and for me, it just represented like such an identity that, music for me was what pushed me into fashion and still what kind of keeps me there. It's also
Right.
why I like to talk to a lot of musicians on this, because especially hearing how some people will think about it, where it's like, yeah, no, I tend to gravitate towards this brand, or I just, yeah, I had a musician on, he's like, yeah, I don't buy new clothes. And he was just like, there's no point. He's like, I buy old guitars. He's like, I don't
Right.
need the fact that it was made new. And I was like, that's kind of a privileged position to be in and of itself, because the shit that you're playing is a 30K guitar. So like, I get it.
Yeah,
But
100%. It's like, you could take the whole like high road but with anything,
yeah,
like, oh, I only wear this because like it's better for the environment and all that. And sure, like there's probably, it's actually, I think it's good to like be conscious of things,
yeah,
but it's also, it's also so much more than that. It's so much like that has to do with individuality and taste and things. For me, dress is a great example of something that like it's like the records I'm talking about. I have plenty of close friends that I love that dress like some of them dress like they're literally straight out of 1940, or like some of them dress like they're straight out of 1960 or 70. And it's
yeah,
like, it's so intense, it's like literally everything is that. Like, it's not even modern brands that kind of look like that or something. For me, I'm not really interested in that at all. Like I don't want to walk out and be like, and there was a point in my life, I think when I like just moved to California, I was like 17, 18 years old, that like, oh, I might have, I bought a pair of bell bottoms because I thought it was cool.
hell yeah,
Um, but for me, I'm just not in, I don't really, I can't do it. And it's also just not me. I think a lot of that's like costumey. And it's like, I think what's kind of kept me in check is like, being from Texas, it's like, I'm not gonna, my style is like, I want to wear what's expressive to me and what I think is cool and stylish and nice. But like, if I'm out in Laredo hunting with like a bunch of guys who work in Houston or work on like on rice farms, I'm not going to wear like flared pants and like,
no,
no, I'm not going to do that. And like, it's not me either. It's just, so it's like, people do that and it's cool and fine for them. For me, it's kind of like a balance of, well, I love, like you said, CSN. I love their style. I love like
yeah,
looking at, Gordon Lightfoot had great style, or,
yes,
like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, all these different people have like amazing individualistic style. Billy
yeah,
Preston, crazy. And so it's like, well, how do you have that now? How do you like look at the past, and how do you have like how do you have an understanding of it and an understanding of certain things, but also like apply it and make it feel fresh, but like not fresh. That's
yeah,
kind of I don't want to live in a modern house. Like, I don't want to live in one of those houses that's like all, moderned out, even though a lot of those old modern designs are like from the 20s.
you don't want black gutters and a white house.
Yeah, exactly. I also don't want to live in like a castle, from like the 1700s. As cool,
Yeah,
actually, maybe I would, but it's like, but it's more so like, it's like a blend. It's like, what's new? How do you combine those old elements with like something that's interesting?
yeah.
And how do you try to do it as much in your own style as possible? So,
Are your folks like this?
no, not at all.
No.
No.
Do you have a relationship with them?
Yeah, very close, but they are like, Texan, like just, I would say they're very like, it's like that well respected man kink song. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great,
Uh,
great analogy.
and yeah, I mean, they're great, normal people, I don't think that I don't think that like they have the maybe like concern that I do with like certain like aspects of music or style or something like that. For them, it's just like they're just doing their own thing, and it's just different. It's like a little bit more like, oh, this is like a new shirt from like this new place, and like this is what people wear now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it sounds like you moved away at a younger age, and like I did the same, and I feel like I got to, because of the fact that I wasn't around my parents, to almost like instill more of whatever value that they had at that time on me, that I feel far more convicted about the values that I absorbed and created for myself at that age, because it was on my own versus what was molded onto me.
Well, the thing is, for me, I think is like the artistic stuff, the music stuff, all that is kind of like not in the wheelhouse of my parents at all. But the approach to life, I think, and like the temperance, or like the just the outlook of life, outlook of value and stuff like that, definitely comes from them. And in that way, I am very aligned with them. And but it's just like there's different sides of things. I know kids who, like, when I meet their parents, I'm like, you're literally your parents. Like, you laugh like your parents. You like all the same shit as your parents, and you think the exact same way. So for me, it's like, I think that I'm definitely molded by my parents, as everybody is.
Sure,
for better or for worse. For my case, it was for better. I'm very blessed to have very good parents, but very loving parents. But in terms of like who we are as individuals and like what we value, what we spend our time doing and caring about, it's like could not be more different, probably.
Yeah. My dad was in a band, and they were honestly really good. And he passed a couple years ago, and I like dig into his music a lot now, and it's fucking great. Like, I mean, it was, he played with the dudes from America, and
so sick.
Yeah, and but also he was very influenced by the other stuff that was coming out at that time. So like a lot of Elton John references, a lot of, even on how he was writing his own music, how he would like roll into different chords, and it's cool to see.
That's amazing. I know a guy who, do you know who the group Sylvie, that guy, Ben Schwab in LA? You should check his records out. They're cool. If you like, if it's, you'll like it. Anyways, his dad was like in a group called Mad Anthony, and there's like an archive record that just came out. Great. There's a song on it called Rena. That's an amazing song. But he's one of those people who, it's like, if you listen to Mad Anthony and you listen to Sylvie, it's like the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, Yeah. And that's cool that's cool, especially, I don't know. I feel like on my end, I feel grateful that my parents weren't musical, because I think if they were, I probably would have rebelled against it and become like a professor or something. You know what I mean? And so for me, I like that it's a separate thing, because I think I just like, some people just have that independent bone in them. And I think that I've definitely have that. But I also think it's really cool, like when I go to certain friends' house and like their dad is an amazing bluegrass player and like can sing harmonies on, an America song. It's just like cool. It's cool to be around that. And it's like, wow, that's awesome, and it's just not what I have, It's a different connection.
My kids want to learn how to play music, and my daughter, I've started teaching her piano. I never, because look, I was forced to play music when I was younger. Then I rebelled on it super hard, and then I kind of found my way back to it later. But my daughter, of course, she wants to learn Beatles songs, so she wants to learn like Golden Slumbers and stuff. And so I'm trying to teach her the chords, and I see how pissed off she's getting, because she can't do it on her first try. Yep. And it's so interesting, because like I'm now in this position where I'm like, okay, I could have her figure it out. I'm like, look, it's not that hard. You got to keep practicing. Like Paul McCartney was not some genius piano player. Like, look, what's great writer, but like, and I see her wanting to not do it, but she cares so much. And so I'm like, man, how do I fucking foster this relationship with her in music and not taint it and make it, my thing? It's like, I want to encourage what she likes. Because for me, still, everything is going to always end, begin and end on music. Like if I don't have it, I'm cooked.
Right. Well, for me, I think the fact that I wasn't forced to do it as a kid really, I mean, it makes it so now looking back, I think that as a kid playing piano, I was probably good enough at piano at such a young age that I could have, if I was forced and in a certain type of family, been an amazing pianist,
Yeah.
like a very good pianist. I look back at it and there's a part of me that regrets that I didn't push myself or get pushed harder,
Mm.
because I look at like, like a Ray Charles, or I look at like a Nina
Yeah.
Simone, and I'm just like, holy moly, that is the coolest thing ever to be able to like play that way. And there's a part of me that like, is bummed about the fact that I didn't really take advantage of like the full thing. But I also know that if I was forced to do it, I would have probably quit,
Yeah.
just knowing who I am. And so I think it's important with your kids it's a balance, of just like, I think I think exposing people to like the fruits of those labors. So like I think if I would have heard like a Nina Simone like song when I was a kid, that might have blown my mind enough. Or for me, it was like watching my piano teacher play. He was a great jazz pianist. Watching him
Mm.
just play was like enough to fuel me to keep going. But I also think I needed to have those, like, there was definitely months where it was like, I don't want to practice. And not having
Yeah.
somebody like disappointed in me for that, I think that's what like kept me going. And if so it's that balance. But then you also, it's like, I don't know, Beethoven's dad was like an asshole. And like,
Yeah, right.
so was Michael Jackson's dad. And so it's like,
You're exactly right. Where you have some of these musicians and people who are, it was literally and figuratively beaten over their head to
right.
be some sort of exceptional musician, and then it's
Right.
like, it's
I don't
very
think it's worth
interesting.
that though.
No,
maybe it's worth it for the
no.
world or something. Maybe the world benefits from it, but it ruins those people's lives.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, I guess to end it on a more positive note, I think it's just like you just have to foster people's talents and like also just find the balance between like pushing somebody when they're developing, but also not pushing them completely away from the love of something.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
in trusting in, their own curiosity. I mean, for me, at one point I would be playing and my dad would shout from the other room. He'd be like, "You're flat,"
Yeah.
and I'd be like trying to play something and be like, "Tune your guitar." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" I was like, "I'm trying to play this song." And he'd just walk in, whoop, 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 and he had perfect pitch.
Right.
And he just heard how wrong I was, and he would go and he'd fix it, and then he'd walk away. And I was like, "Fuck you, man!" Like I was like, "Dude." But then eventually later, I was like, kind of just picking up the guitar because I still want to. I can't not play music, even though I'm not playing as a living or trying to play for anyone. I got to sit and just play because otherwise, I feel like I'm just going to fall apart.
Well, I mean, that's like the purest, I think, way of playing music. I think and it's something I think about a lot. It's just like how much the industry kind of can taint anyone's relationship with like such a holy thing.
Yeah.
When it becomes your job, when it becomes your source of income, the relationship changes to a certain degree. I was thinking about it yesterday. I was at a practice for a friend, great musician, great songwriter, and I really didn't want to be there because I was so tired, from like all of this other stuff that I've been doing. And I'm like, wow, I'm playing these wonderful songs with these wonderful people. And I'm like in a shitty mood because I don't want to be here. And it was like this moment where I was kind of like, wow, look at how, you can almost get too much of a good thing, and it could start to just overwhelm you. So it's just all about balance and everything.
So that being said, what's next for you? I mean, are you going to tour pretty hard on this record?
Yeah, I'm going to tour hard. I have some tours coming up and trying to land some opening gigs as well. And then I have like 2 other albums I'm working on right now. So
2?
2 other records.
Well, 2 of your records, or you're just playing on 2 other records?
No, 2 of my records. One's through like the electric band that I play with, which is like a very different style of things. And then I have another of my records that I'm finishing up writing right now. So
I'm curious about when you're playing these songs and when you're writing these songs, and now you're getting ready to essentially show the world this record that, for all intents and purposes, you've already done, right?
Right.
Do you still feel good when you're out there playing it because people are receiving it, or?
Yes. I mean, there's certain songs that I'm not going to play, just because like they're too intense, or like I just don't want to
Oh,
do it,
sure.
or
Yeah.
something like that. But I think it's a testament of a song's really good or not is like if you can play it over and over and over again and have it still be fresh.
Yeah.
There's definitely some songs on the record I'm tired of playing at this point. But that's just the modern. I mean, that's just the modern music world, and that's not even modern. I mean, that's just been kind of the case as long as the record industry has been around.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to press vinyl or to you know load things up to the streaming services and market it, and by the time it finally gets out to the world and you're like touring it, it's like it can be over a year old or multiple years old depending when you wrote it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, but you just have to go out there and try to connect with it. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, Alex, thank you so much for chatting with me. It was great chatting with you. I'll talk to you soon.
yeah, thanks so much.
I've seen early mornings rising where the mountains shine like diamonds in the sky. Watched years come like freight trains and fly away like jet planes in the night. Been free as a child, strong in the sun. As I watch the river run. There's no one in the world that makes me feel the ways that you do. No one else is giving me love so true. And anytime I turn away, look back and see you standing there with your golden hair. Though the mountains and the rivers and the cities and the oceans come between, I still feel you with me, and I walk with you through my dreams. I want to see you smile in the wind. I want to be